Good evening, everyone. We are continuing on our chapter 3 today, and there is a lot of information in chapter 3 that we have in the Hebrew, but it doesn't really come out in the English. And so today we will plow through a number of verses that I hope that would open up our eyes to what really is happening. And it has a lot more to do besides the Hebrew language. It is also with the Hebrew culture. So let's begin in chapter 3, verse 1. We left off yesterday uh, where we were talking about uh, how Naomi and Ruth were together, and that episode of gleaning came to an end, and they had stayed together throughout the harvesting season. And that would be from March probably through the summer. Now, in chapter 3, it is a continuation from that point, uh, because all these words here, like this, then, right? It would be an and then after whatever is in chapter 2, and we don't know how long. And this was what happened. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, and that would be Ruth, saying to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you?" Now, some of the times when we read things like that in the English, it may not mean a whole lot. So let me just try to unpack this a little bit. So it says, "Shall I not seek?" The word seek here is to seek to secure. Seek to secure, not just look, but really look with an intent. Now, this word security that we read here in the English, it really means rest, right? It really means rest. And by rest, you need to understand that this is an inference to a home. And if you recall in Ruth chapter 1, when Naomi told the two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, to tell them to go home to their mothers and find rest. The idea there is not to go home and sleep, but to go home and find a new family, right? Get married again in our modern day terms. And so in this case, Naomi is telling Ruth that she will look for a home for her, meaning a spouse for her, so that she can settle down. Now, this is a very Oriental thinking. When a woman settles down, it refers to the fact that she now has a resting place, that she has a secure place, that she has a man who will protect and take care of her. That's the idea of security. And so this is about Naomi looking for a man for Ruth, for you, that it may be well with you. Now remember, these words is tov, that in the eyes of Ruth, she would be happy. Things will be good for her. So this is the word good. Because in her lifetime, Naomi is already advanced in age, but Ruth is considered young. And in so doing, it would be a shame that she would go through life alone. And so in that Oriental Hebrew thinking is to look for a place for her to settle in for rest. And so the word security comes into play. Now, Boaz, whose young women you were with in chapter 2, where she was gleaning with the young men who would protect and the young women who would teach her. Is he not our relative? Now we saw this in chapter 2, verse 1. right? The word relative means somebody who is well known and close in that relationship of the family. That is what it means by relative. That it's not just distant, but it is someone who is close by and well known to the family, and also well known to others, that this is the person, right? A very, very close relative. And somehow Naomi has a lot of, I would say, intelligence. So she says, in fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now, how would she know? But she does. Now, winnowing is the act of how should we say, when you after the harvest, he would actually throw the chaff into the air, and so that the wind will catch the chaff and the barley would stay in the pan. And that's the idea of winnowing, so that you can get the barley out of the harvest. And it is always done at a place called the threshing floor. The threshing floor is an open space. And in that open space, it is in anticipation that wind will blow and catch the chaff. That is a threshing floor. Now, we are not used to that, but for those people who are from, say, up north, where, or even in Kuala Selangor, where you've got paddy, and they do winnowing with paddy as well. It's the same concept, because they are all wheat or grass class of plants. And so in that open space, he will be there tonight. And in this case, they are not worried, because they sleep there. Night would be the dark period. And it's called Laila in the Hebrew. And then in verse 3, Naomi tells Ruth, therefore, because he is there. Who is he? Boaz. He is going to sleep there tonight. And they are, I guess all the workers will be sleeping there. It's an open space as well. So therefore, you wash yourself. And the idea of washing and anointing yourself is an act of cleansing, right? It's a cleansing. It's also to smell good. The idea of anoint yourself would be in our modern day, putting on some perfume, right? That would be the case. And so wash yourself is the idea of cleansing to smell good, and anoint yourself is to put on oil to smell good. At the same time, she is to put on her best garment to look really good for Boaz. And after doing all that, go down to the threshing floor where he would be tonight. And then, interestingly, it seems that Naomi is somewhat scheming a date for Ruth. It says, do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Now, understand this. The Oriental concept of eating means eat to full. And they would be drinking wine to full as well. And this would be very, very much the customs as well, because they are enjoying themselves in the work of harvesting. And then it says here, then it shall be when he lies down, meaning when he lies down to sleep, then you take note of the place where he is lying down, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. Now, it all sounds very sinister to us in the English, but this is very much a Hebrew custom, and Naomi is teaching Ruth how to get involved with a man from a Hebrew culture, and in this case, remembering Ruth being a Moabitess, would not understand and all the nuances and activities that a woman can and cannot do, and what that would signify. And so this is very much the mother-in-law, Naomi, teaching Ruth the Israelite way of doing things. And Ruth is a very obedient young girl. And so she learns and listens to all these things. Now, one of the things that we need to now take a look at is this. The text in the next paragraph is to describe what Ruth actually did. If you look at verse 5, Ruth said to Naomi, "All that you say to me, I will do." And it shows that Ruth is very obedient. As she has committed herself to Naomi, she is doing everything that she has said she would do. And so this is Ruth reinforcing her commitment to Naomi. All that you, Naomi, says to me, Ruth, I will do. So I will do according to exactly what you said here from verse 3 and verse 4. Now we come to verse 6. We can read a couple of things. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. Now let's take a look at this carefully. If you recall, in verse 3, it says, wash yourself, anoint yourself, put on your garment, and that's the first thing you do. And then number 2, you go down to the threshing floor. So let's follow the text. And in verse 6, she went down to the threshing floor, which is the number 2. She did the reverse. And then she did the first to change. Now, the Jews would comment on this. Now, to us, it's like, well, what difference does that make? So, if you look at this, it says here, the word and is and then. And so this word is also and then. What it tells us is that the text is merely telling us that you do 1 and then you do 2. It's in a sequence. And in verse 6, she did 2 and then she did 1, which is the reverse sequence. In English, we probably won't care, but there seems to be some indication that she had to go down to the threshing floor first because people would see her. And it would look really awkward if she was all dressed up in a very unusual way, not for threshing, but for a date, right? And so she went to the threshing floor, and then only there in the facilities there at the threshing floor, she did the rest to wash herself, anoint herself, and put on her best garment. So this is a very interesting observation that I think all of us should pay attention to. She went to do the reverse. Now, moving on into verse 7, then Boaz had eaten and drunk. Remember, this is eat to the full and drink to the full. And his heart was cheerful. Now, verse 7 says his heart was cheerful. The Hebrew means was good. He was feeling very good, at least to himself, right? To himself, he was feeling very good after eating and drinking. And then it says, well, we're missing this word here. And then he went to lie down at the end of a heap of grain. Now, understand this. There is not a housing structure there. There may be for cooking or for whatever that may be, for changing, for toilet. But the sleeping place is really an open place. And so he picked a place at the end of a heap of grain. After the winnowing, you would be having a pile of the grain. Now, in this case, barley, right? And so he went to lie down, and this is to lie down to sleep. Look at the next phrase. And this would be, and then after he lied down, she came softly. Now, the idea of softly really means secretly. That nobody knows, nobody can tell. Very quietly, very covertly, that's what it means. It's not softly, right? And then the next phrase here, we're also missing another word. And then she uncovered. Now, the word uncovered, literally to reveal. I think that would be a good word to use. To reveal his feet. Literally his feet. Or at the place of the feet. So the lower part of his body, basically. Right? The lower part of the body. We could also look at the feet itself as symbol, right? As a symbol. And then, right? Another word, and then she lay down at his feet. So you notice we are missing a couple of very important connecting words, because this gives us a sequence of events that's happening. Now, if you recall, let me just back up a little bit so you can see. Ruth went down to the threshing floor, and then she changed, bathed, put oil, and then after Boaz had fully eaten and drank his wine, and then his heart was very good, and then he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And then Ruth came very quietly, very secretly, and then Ruth revealed his feet. And then she laid down at the end of his foot, right? His feet. Now, one of the things that we may not be aware is that when she goes to lie down at the feet, right? Lie down at the feet. It is quite interesting to notice that there is a meaning to this phrase. How should I say? The meaning here is let me just put it down here. To invite for marriage. right? To invite for marriage. And this would be a understanding. Now, the covering of his feet is really his garment, right? And those people wear long tunics, the covering, and it's long all the way to the feet. And so now we have this picture up to verse 7. Now, all through, he was asleep, right? He was asleep. And then, another time, right? And then, after a period of time, that it happened to be in the middle of the night. And this would say, this is the half of night. And so that's why we got our English word midnight. The half of the night, Boaz was startled. The idea of startled was he was terrified. That when he awoke, he thought that, no, what strange thing had happened. That is what this word means. It's just not startled. He was awoken, and he was very afraid, not understanding what's happening. Right? And then he turned himself. Now, what do you mean he turned himself? The idea here, he turned himself, and it's literally the word turn, and it is a twisting motion. He was trying to get out of this situation, to turn to the side and turn and wriggle himself out of the position. And as he was trying to do that, the word here was, and there really means behold. He saw a woman lying at his feet, right? That's basically what the text is saying. And then he said, who are you? And that is quite an obvious statement. Now, it's the middle of the night, after lots to eat and lots to drink, that he was probably half asleep, half awake, and he couldn't tell. And so she answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Now, how does she refer to herself as maidservant? Because in chapter 2, we've already seen that Boaz was treating her very comfortably as one of his own, as a maidservant. So she says, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. Now, this is where we need to explain a little bit. The word take your maidservant, it really requires us to understand the translation a little bit more. This word really means to spread out. Spread out. Right? Spread out, and just ignore this one for the time being. Spread out your wing. What is your wing? Your kanaf. Now, kanaf literally means the extremity of the garment. So we could say this would be the bottom of your garment. So let me just try to draw this out. See, if you have a garment, a long garment, all the way to the feet, this part here is the wing, the extremity is the wing, right? It's like a bird where the wing is the extremity of the bird itself. And with a garment, that would be the end part of the garment. Now let's look at this other word. It says, spread out the bottom of your garment, the wing. And this word is upon. Your handmaid. So you could actually retranslate it this way. It would say, spread out the bottom of your garment. Garment upon your maid servant. Now, this is a gesture. This is a gesture to, how should you say, to invite a marriage, okay, to invite a marriage. And it is requested by Ruth. Now, it's a very unusual, at least to us, and Ruth is now explaining to him why that should be the case, that you should take your maidservant as your wife. Now, this is in plain language. Why? Why? The word is this. The reason is this. The reason is that you, Boaz, are a close relative. And now in the English, it doesn't make any sense. So what? He's a close relative. Just because he's a close relative, why does Ruth need to do that? But the word is not close relative. The word here is what we call a redeemer. A redeemer who is a kinsman. That's the word here. Close relative. And the word is Gaal. Right? Gaal. And let me just refer you to Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23. Right? Oh, sorry. Leviticus chapter 25, verses 23 to 28. And this has to do with the land redemption. In the law of God, the land of Elimelech, considered his property, has to go to the sons. But the sons had died. Machlon and Kilion both died in Moab. But Machlon's wife or widow is Ruth. And so Ruth has come back and joined the nation, as we saw in chapter 1, and has become like one of them, subjected to the law of God in the land. In this principle, the invitation of marriage by Ruth to Boaz is to actually let him know that he is not only a close relative, but he has a job to do. That the job is to marry Ruth so that Boaz becomes the son of Elimelech and thereby redeem or acquire back the land that Elimelech had sold before he went to Moab. Now, the principle is this: the land cannot be sold permanently. The land at the year of Jubilee must always return to its rightful owner. But Elimelech doesn't have a son. And so by marriage, and Boaz agrees to marry Ruth in a marriage which requires Boaz to give up his lineage and then join himself to Elimelech's lineage, thereby in the process redeem the land of Elimelech as well. And thereby the children of Boaz and Ruth will become Elimelech's lineage or descendants. Now, I have said a lot of things just by talking about this word close relative, which is Gaal, a redeemer kinsman. Because the Hebrew is not obvious to us, the English doesn't say much, because the English would actually give us more questions than answers. When you understand that what Ruth is trying to do is to indicate to Boaz that he is to marry her so that Naomi's husband's property or land can be redeemed. And based on the laws of God, there is a need for Boaz to marry Ruth. That's all part and parcel of the law. Now, we may not understand a whole lot of it, but go back and read Leviticus chapter 25. So we go on from here in verse 10. Then he said, that's Boaz is now responding, "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning." What does that mean? That you have shown more chesed. At the end, or at the back, at the later part, then at the beginning, at the start where she said, "Yes, your God shall be my God and your people shall be my people." That's the start. But right now she is giving herself entirely to the law of God and in honor of Naomi and the family. This is an incredible contribution and sacrifice. And then he says this, that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. The key word here is young, right? That's the key word here is young men. Why is it key word? Because Boaz is an older man. That's why he could call her my daughter. And that's why he could say, you didn't go after young men, whether poor or rich. The emphasis is on young. The emphasis is on young. And the idea of young is about youth, which is matching to her because she is also youthful. She is also youthful. And now, my daughter, it says here, do not fear. This is the same word that is used to fear God. Do not fear. You can fear God, but do not fear Boaz. Right? Do not be afraid of Boaz. Because you may be a Moabitess, you don't know the laws. This is what he says, I will do for you all that you request. So the word request is everything you say, right? For all the people of my town know. How do they know? Well, they have experienced her, talked to her, looked at her, observed her. So the word know is from the experiential that they could see and know, and is by experience. This is the word know. That you are a virtuous woman. Now understand this word virtuous. The word virtuous here is one with might, with strength. Now, this is not to say that she's a strong woman, but she is one of virtue, strong in virtue. She has decided not to go back to the father and mother. She has decided to come to a land and seek refuge under the wings of God of Israel. She has decided to listen and obey her mother-in-law. She has decided to subject herself to the laws of God. She has decided to do everything that it takes to please her mother-in-law. That is why she is called a virtuous woman, a woman of strength from a feminine viewpoint, and hence virtue. Now it is true. Now it is true. It is, how should you say? It is very sure that I am a close relative. Now, this word close relative is somebody who is a kinsman who can be a redeemer, to redeem the land. So that is what close relative in English is all about. Says, yes, I could be that man. And then he points out, but there is a relative closer than I. Now, this means that closer means nearer in relationship. So there is a relative, it's not relative, there is a kinsman, redeemer, who is nearer in relationship than Boaz. All right? And so the conclusion of this evening was this: stay this night. That is, they are still in that conversation in the middle of the night, and in the morning, when it is bright, when it starts to be bright, it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you. Now, what that means is this: that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, means if he will be that kinsman, redeemer. And what does that mean? Remember, marry Ruth and give up his own lineage, join the lineage of Elimelech, and so that the children of Boaz and Ruth becomes the descendants of Elimelech and not his previous descendants, even though they were all Jews. This is an incredible sacrifice. And so he says, if that closer, the nearer relations or relative will do this kinsman redeemer, then good. Let him do it. Now, the second part is this. But if, remember, it's a condition. If he does not want to perform the duty for you, then, only and then, I will perform the duty for you. So he is stating that he will go and do it. He will go and become the redeemer, right? He will perform the duty. The word perform the duty means he will be the kinsman redeemer, so that the lineage of Elimelech will be maintained. And as Ruth requested, see, notice it's a very interesting thing that Boaz sees Ruth as someone extremely special, and perhaps he also realized of Elimelech, the lineage of Elimelech as well, right? And look at what he says. He is making an oath, as the Lord lives. This is a swear. He is swearing, right? This is an oath. As the Lord lives, I will do this if he doesn't act as the kinsman redeemer. And then he tells her, why don't you lie down, sleep until then, right? Sleep until then. We have a few more verses, and so let's complete them. Verse 14. And then, now this is the word in verse 14. And then, what does that mean? After all this that was said by Boaz, a conversation of Boaz and Ruth with regards to marriage, but marriage in the context of redeeming the property of Elimelech and the role of a kinsman redeemer, so that Boaz will be rightfully able to redeem by marriage into the family of Elimelech, to really become the son of Elimelech. And so she lay at his feet until the daytime. And again, and then in the morning. The word morning here is when it starts to be bright. And then she arose before anyone could recognize another. What does that mean? It means before anyone would take notice of each other, meaning they haven't fully awakened yet. They may be half asleep, half drowsy, trying to wake up. That is the idea here. It's still fairly dark, although the light is coming out. That's where it's called Bocher. And then she rose and then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Verse 14. The idea is about recognizing, right? Do not let it be known is about recognition. And so it is important that Ruth is not known to have come to the threshing floor, because it would not do well for her. That is the description here, right? Also, he said, bring the shawl. Now, the word shawl here in verse 15, this really means a cloak. The how would you say, the piece of cloth that is big, and she wraps herself around that. Now, in English, we call it a shawl, but it is much bigger than our modern day shawl. It's huge, it's big, and it wraps them up, and particularly used by the women. That is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her, and then she went into the city, and that would be Bethlehem. And she went back to the mother-in-law. Now, what does this mean is she is supposed to leave quietly, and nobody is supposed to know that she has come to the threshing floor, to maintain her anonymity, to make sure that people do not misunderstand, perhaps. And before Ruth left, she was given 6 ephahs of barley. And just know that it's a lot of barley. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, is that you, my daughter? Why is this question? It is still not fully bright in the morning yet. And she told her all that the man had done for her. That's Boaz. And she said, These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me, for he said to me, do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. Empty-handed would be no going home with nothing. That's basically what it means. And this also signifies to Naomi that Boaz has accepted the offer. And then Naomi said, sit still, my daughter. Now, sit still literally means just remain there, right? Remain there. Don't go anywhere, right? Don't go anywhere. My daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. Now, this is a very interesting phrase. The word here is that you know. Know means that you can see, observe, experience to get the knowledge, right? That's what it means. So Naomi is telling Ruth, just watch all that's happening. And it says how the matter, this is davar, right? Davar means the issue, the word. The idea here will turn out. Will turn out means how the word will fall. Now, this is a very imagery type of word, right? Basically, how the matter, how the word is going to fall and shape into to its consequences. So just sit and watch, basically that, right? Sit and watch to see how it all pans out. For the man will not rest. The word rest here means be at peace. The man will not be at peace. The man will not be quiet. Right? The man will not be quiet. That's what it means. Will not rest. Rest means stop doing things. Right? That's what rest here means. Stop doing things. Until he has concluded the davar, the word, this day. So you notice this is a very urgent matter that is treated by Boaz. The word conclude literally means come to an end. So this matter must be completed. He must find a resolution. And you could see how interesting Boaz is. He's not the kind that will just procrastinate. In the middle of the night, he discovered this. And in the morning, he starts to attend to it until it will be settled. And somehow Naomi knows this. Now, was there any contact between Naomi and Boaz? We don't know. But it seems that Boaz knows the history of Naomi and Elimelech and how important it is for the continuation of the lineage. And Boaz accepted the responsibility if the first closest relative is not willing to go through with it. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 3.